Hello, my name is Ben Brown. I'm here with Mr. Kerper, one of the most successful businessmen in the Liberian community in Minnesota. And Mr. Dwayne, this is Bushchicken, and it's been rumors that people have petitioned you in the community to join the race for the presidency of the organization of Liberians in Minnesota. Well, is that true? And if so, why have you decided to join the race?
Yes, it's true. We have been petitioned by a cross-section of our population, leaders from various county organizations, opinion leaders in the community, and people whom I have a deep sense of respect for, and people who have a deep sense of commitment to our community. They obviously feel that I have the capacity to lead the organization in a direction that would meet the aspiration that we all share. It took a lot of soul searching for me to balance, first of all, my activities in the business world and other commitments. But having looked at where our community is, the potential of our community, and the dismal performance that we see, as a burning desire inside of me to see that our community performs to its potential. We are the most significant community of Liberians outside of the country. In terms of population, we are not the largest. We are the largest in the United States. But when you take a look at the economic potential of our community, when you take a look at the human resources of our community, it's fair to say that no other community of Liberians outside of Liberia matches what we have to offer. So it is imperative upon us that our performance as a community will reflect that, reflect a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, and achievement that would be commensurate to the blessings and the opportunities that we have before us.
You once served as the senior advisor to the president. And yes, it is true that you resigned that position some time ago. Now, what do you bring to the table at this time?
Well, what I bring to the table are the same things that I try to bring to the table in this current administration. During the campaign period, the current president ran on a platform of accountability, delivering services, and depoliticizing the OLM, to move it to the direction of being a non-for-profit, service-oriented entity. This is the promise that we bought into, the Liberian community bought into, but it turned out that after the elections were over, we could not see the movement in that direction. Advices that were given in that direction were ignored. Accountability went to the back burner. Restructuring the organization to meet the mold, to deliver the services, and to move away from the excessive politicization went to the back burner. And it became a situation where I had to recognize that my services were not really appreciated. Once we won the election, I think that became disposable in terms of the ideas that I brought to the table. And people were enjoying the advent of being in a position without focusing on delivering the promises which led to the election.
It is no secret that ORM is now a 501c organization, 501c3 organization. Now, if kerper.wmv was elected today, where do you hope to take this organization, and what philosophy, leadership philosophy, that you hope to bring to this organization that is actually different from what this present leadership has in place?
First of all, the advent of the 501c3, I have consulted with many nonprofit organizations in our community. I've been instrumental in drafting and formulating the applications for 501c3 for those entities. And I worked along with the Wilfred Harris administration to initiate the 501c3 application and continue that process under this current administration that led to the granting of the status. Prior to that, I served as chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee, and in that document we made several recommendations about how this organization could move forward to meet its goals. What I intend to do would be to restructure this organization from its current form. I envision seeing an organization where you would have a structure where you have a board of directors that would employ an executive director who would work at the will and pleasure of the board. One of the problems that we have in our community is we have the structure where we elect a president and then we elect a board, and they both come to the table with a sense of, I'm my own person, and it's a recipe for conflict. And we see this across Liberian organizations all across the country. I'll give you an example of an organization that I was involved in from the inception to now, and that organization is now one of the most successful organizations in delivering services. It's the Peabody District Development Association. When we started that organization in 2001, I served as the consultant to the leadership team. They called me the technical advisor. We drafted a constitution along these lines where we have a 7-person board of directors that appoints an executive director, and we applied for and obtained the 501c3 with my technical advice. To date, we do not have the typical conflicts that you see between board and president, because the executive director works for the board. They take instructions from the board. There is no such conflict. We have managed to renovate the high school in Tapeta. The UNDP saw the project, saw the progress we were making, and they partnered with us to conclude that. We're now in the process of rehabilitating other schools within the district. Recently we completed the immigration substation, built it, and turned it over to the government. And last year our financial outlays amounted to $43,000. We have gotten former Peace Corps individuals who work in Liberia to make huge donations to the organization because of the progress we're making. And that progress is because we have a structure which allows for performance. It reduces friction and it allows for performance. So what I would like to see in the OLM would be to expand the board to between 9 to 12 persons. I prefer 12. 9 of those are elected from our community, directly by the members of the organization. And the other 3 would be appointed to the board upon the recommendation of the executive director and ratified by the board. And these will be individuals of stature within the Minnesota community, not necessarily Liberians. Individuals who have the influence to access powerful people to be able to help us to bring resources to our organization. And in that way, we can afford to hire a full-time executive director who would then have the attention of the organization as their primary responsibility, paying them sufficient in order to dedicate the time to run the organization, along with perhaps 1 or 2 other staff. This way we can truly move the organization to the next level.
It is interesting that you touched on the board. Now, as you may be aware, there has been this ongoing audit report that has been around since the present leadership took over. And recently, the board of directors, under the leadership of Mr. Abdullahi Kitsama, exonerated the former chairman of the Election Commission. Now, what is your take on that?
I think that was quite confusing and disappointing, because I was involved in this Election Commission report from the onset. That report was presented to the Transition Committee, which I chaired, and that was the first time in my lifetime that an individual presented a financial report that they refused to discuss. After we went through the report and crunched the numbers, I observed that the numbers did not add up. There were serious discrepancies, not in questioning what was indicated as expenses or revenues, but that those expenses and revenues, when you added it up and subtracted to come with a net figure, did not match. So I contacted the chairman and made him aware of it, and he brought back a subsequent report which raised even more eyebrows. For example, one of the elements in the report indicated $917 for photocopies. If you made photocopies at Kinko's for 10 cents a piece, that's 9,170 photocopies. I was deeply involved in the election process, as you know, as chairman for the campaign team of the current administration. Most of the campaign materials that were distributed most of the election materials were distributed over the internet. The election voting materials, which were physical paper, also had a different cost item. So the question in the minds of many was that, where did these photocopies go? Who made these photocopies? Where were they? The report didn't have any receipts to document these transactions. So it was the recommendation of our committee that the report be subjected to an audit, given that the administration ran on a platform of accountability and transparency, and that all the board members ran on the same platform. The report was sent forward to the audit committee that was appointed, and it came to our attention that the audit committee was being resisted. The chairman Grimes, according to the audit committee, returned the letter of engagement that was sent to them. They made representation to me and the president. The president intervened, and there were several email exchanges urging Chairman Grimes to cooperate with the audit committee. The chairman of the Elections Commission argued that it was beyond anybody's mandate to audit him, since the commission had been dissolved upon the certification of the election results, and that it was unconstitutional to audit him. And unfortunately, the situation lagged endlessly. I was aware that this committee was looking into the audit report and quite baffled that the primary justification for clearing the elections commissioner is that there was no evidence of contact by the audit committee. I think everyone in this administration and the board is aware of the contact. There are written communications to document that contact, that the chairman was aware, and so it was quite surprising that they came with that conclusion. However, it did indicate that the elections commissioner had 7 days from the date of their report to present documentation to substantiate his report. That 7 days has expired now, so I'm curious as to where that process leads, and I'm sure the community is also curious as to where that process leads, whether or not the Elections Commission chairman, the first ward chairman, has met up with the conditions that were established.
Recently on the Bushchicken list or another list, there was one Lawrence City, someone under the name of Lawrence City, who sent out communication accusing you of other incidents in Liberia. What is your response to that?
Well, first of all, there is no Lawrence City. I hold Benoni Grimes personally responsible for everything that is done on the listserv that he controls. Lawrence City is yet to present himself forward. We are aware of no Lawrence City in this community. The last time Lawrence City surfaced was to raise frivolous accusations against the chairman of the audit committee the last time that this audit was being discussed in the public arena. Unfortunately, Mr. Grimes' approach to dealing with the question of his management of the community's resources has been to attack people who he perceives as pressing him for accountability. This is a time to move forward. It's a time of reconciliation. My activities in Liberia are no secret to anyone. What I did was to help to promote the Peacekeepers agenda. It is clear I've made written statements about that in the past, and it was the patriotic mandate of every Liberian to see to it that ECOMOG succeeded, because the principle of ECOMOG was that we all would sit as citizens of our country, discuss our future, and determine the future course through democratic means. So helping ECOMOG to achieve their agenda was a proud moment, even as though we did not succeed to the level that we had hoped for, because ECOMOG himself determined that it was not a feasible plan for them to carry out due to their own logistical limitations. That approach of attempting to intimidate people when they try to stress accountability, it's disgusting. It's the last thing our community needs. It's the last thing our country needs. I stress accountability in everything I do when it comes to organizations. In the Old Timers organization, for example, where I lead, I instituted an audit committee without anyone asking for it, because I believe that audits do several things that are healthy for an organization. Number one, it clears the people handling funds of any aura of impropriety. The second thing is that it puts everyone on notice that whatever you do is going to be examined by someone else, and in so doing, people are more accountable. They seem to be more responsive in how they handle organization funds. So it's a fundamental principle of good management to have periodic audits. So for someone to resist an audit at the same time when they have been entrusted with organization finances, to me it betrays everything I know about management.
Now, when can this community look up to you officially launching your campaign?
We are in the process now of formulating our exploratory committee and putting together the leadership team that would form the administration and carry out the policies that we would like to see implemented. So very shortly, more developments will be coming forth. We are hopeful that the administration would find it necessary to appoint the Elections Commission that is supposed to govern these elections. By constitutional mandate, we should be having elections in November, which is roughly 2.5 months. Traditionally, the Elections Commission is put in place about 5 to 6 months prior to the elections because it takes them time to get organized and get resources and put out rules and have debates. But nonetheless, we expect that we will be having elections in November. No excuse, nothing should deprive the Liberians of the right to determine who leads the organization. We are in a sad state of affairs now where people seem to be totally disconnected from this organization, and that is not so because Liberians do not care. You see that we embrace the process of choosing our leaders. We embrace those leaders when they come in, and unfortunately when the leaders do not live up to the expectations, people disengage. And that's where the OLM is now, and until our community can have a new opportunity with a new core of leaders that they can rally around with the opportunity to make a change, there's going to be that disconnect because our people will welcome their leader, they will dance behind you even if they don't know you, but the minute you let them down, when they turn their backs, they're gone.
One last question. It's interesting that you touch on the limited time. Now, in previous elections, there has been candidates there who dropped out of the election or out of the race due to the timing. The time was short, according to them. They could not raise needed funds. They could not get their team together. Now, again, we are in that similar situation. Elections are expected in November. Now, this is August, almost towards the end, and the Election Commission is not set up yet. How prepared are you to come up with a team in a short period of time, come up with all needed financial backing that you need to launch your campaign, that you need to go forward?
We are prepared. Short timing will not be a deterrent to our effort because we are no stranger to this community. We have very competent people that are advocating for our leadership. We have the wherewithal to put together the team necessary to run the affairs of this organization, and the wherewithal to ensure that we have a very effective campaign. And we look forward to engaging the community and articulating our message as to where we want to take this community. And we would like to see that the OLM will now transcend to the next level. It is time to take this organization to the next level. We need leadership that understands the complexities of the issues that we face. We need leadership that understands the environment we live in, can engage the stakeholders in this community, can chart a course of action to help us achieve our goals. And I I can do that. It is quite unfortunate that we have a grant, for example, from the Housing and Urban Development Agency to budgetary appropriations. I made representations to the current administration as to how those funds could be accessed for the purpose of a community center, and those also fell on deaf ears, and my understanding is it's quite possible that those funds have been returned to the general fund. We intend to seek to restore those funds and to use our expertise in finance and the housing industry to see to it that once we restore those funds, we can move forward to get a center for this community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Graham. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome. Thank you.